Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Play at the Plate podcast. Let me explain what we're going to be doing over here, because as some of you might know, I am hosting two podcasts, and the schedules are going to be very different. So, this is a weekly podcast that will try to cover everything in the MLB. The bigger stories, trying to find some like little nuanced stats, stuff like that. Try to touch on every team if I can, but the priority and what will happen in this episode is going to be a power rankings because I'm recording this on a Thursday night just to kind of get ahead of it. And I really don't want to start on news when I haven't really been paying enough attention to the news in order to like make good high quality content about it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a power rankings. I have three main criteria that I used for this power ranking. One of them is just win-loss record, winning percentage, all that jazz. You have to win games in order to be good. So, winning percentage, run differential, also kind of simple. You have to score more runs than you give up in order to be good. So, run differential, winning percentage, and then the third one is actually the toughness of their upcoming schedule. So, to kind of explain that in a different way, say the Mariners play the White Sox in 3 different series before the year ends. That's a pretty easy schedule for the most part because the White Sox suck. Now, say the White Sox have to play the Yankees in 3 series before the year ends. That's a pretty sucky schedule, and it's probably not going to end up going well because the White Sox suck and the Yankees don't. Got it? Okay, cool. Let's start talking baseball. The 30th ranked team on my list, to the surprise of absolutely nobody, is the Chicago White Sox. And I have all my list and little notes next to every team right here. And the note that I wrote for the Chicago White Sox at the very bottom is, yeah, with 3 dots. Yeah. Worst run differential in the league by like a lot. 248 under, which I don't know how they have given up 600 runs already. That's just absolutely crazy stuff. The only team that's higher than that is the Colorado Rockies, and we can kind of assume that that's only that way because of Colorado. So yeah, 2889, 239 winning percentage. The league batting average is higher than their winning percentage. So that's not very good. I mean their schedule, it's the schedule doesn't matter because they're not better than anybody else. So they're dead last. Little explanation needed. I will say there is something I talked about on my other podcast, Parker Yard. I have absolutely no idea why the White Sox kept Garrett Crochet and Luis Robert at the trade deadline. Because, especially when it comes to Garrett Crochet, they're not gonna see any more value out of him. Like, it's at the top of the top right now. So, I'm not really sure why. I understand Luis Robert is hurt, but he's still such a crazy talent that I'm sure they could have gotten at least some sort of major league talent and probably a decent chunk of prospects for him. And that's what they need to do. They just need to tear it down and start rebuilding. And they kind of did with trading Eloy to the Orioles, but like that's kind of it. Like they didn't do anything else. They didn't trade Crochet, they didn't trade Robert, and I'm just not sure why. So, White Sox dead last. Let's move on. Number 29 on this list. Also sort of obvious, at least to me, the Miami Marlins are gonna occupy this spot. In terms of the record, they do have literally a game better record than the Colorado Rockies. Their run differential is about 30 runs less than the Colorado Rockies, but their schedule coming up is just a death sentence. They pay. They're not paying anybody. They have a really low payroll. They play the Padres. Actually coming up. They play the Phillies. They play the Mets. They play the D-backs. And I mean, they're just not better than the rest of these teams. So it's just a catastrophe for the Marlins. They almost started tearing it down like in mid-April when they traded Luis Arias, who, don't get me wrong, is vastly overrated in my opinion, but I mean, he was kind of the only guy they had, and they traded him before May even began. So there's just something weird going on over Miami. It's bad vibes over there right now, most definitely. So Marlins coming in at 29 on this power rankings. Number 28, the Colorado Rockies. And the note that I have written here for the Rockies is I like Ezequiel Tovar. Because it's true. I like Ezequiel Tovar. He's kind of the only bright spot on that team right now. They have, like I said, they have a worse run differential than the Marlins. They have a worse record than the Marlins, only by one game, but it's still worse. I disregarded the run differential a little more because of Colorado. So, I mean, even if you adjust for it on both sides, it's still probably around that, but it's also still probably a little better because the Rockies pitching staff is, if you take the Rockies pitching staff and put them in literally any other place, they are much better than what they are now. Simply with the Coors effect. So that's why I kind of disregarded the whole run differential thing. And I mean, their schedule, I mean, it's the same story with the Marlins and the White Sox. They're just not better than any of the teams that they play. Obviously, you can win a game on any given night, but I mean, they play the Orioles, they play the D-backs, they play the Dodgers. Play the Dodgers twice. Yeah, I'm just not crazy about that. Like I said, Ezequiel Tovar leads them in every stat that matters, and I love Ezequiel Tovar. So that kind of, maybe that's why I have him in 28. Rockies will come in at number 28 on this power rankings. Number 27, I have the Oakland Athletics. Oakland was actually ranked probably bottom 2 for most people coming into the year. And, well, I mean, they haven't been good, but they got kind of hot at the beginning of the year, and they are somehow not really in the same conversation as those bottom 3 teams. And a lot of that has to do with Mason Miller. Mason Miller has been just absolutely lights out for them. But the guys that I really want to talk about, and the guys that I have written on their note here, the note simply reads Lawrence Butler and Brent Rucker rake. Because that is very true, especially Lawrence Butler. Now, when you look at the beginning of the year stats, they're catastrophic, quite frankly, is the best way I can put it. But if we look from July 14th to present day, August 7th, he is hitting 329 with a 724 slugging percentage, which has him at an OPS at 1097. 7 home runs, 2 triples, 5 doubles. He has just been on another planet. He has broken out in such a huge way, and it has done nothing but help the A's. Especially in that stretch, because I believe if I look at that record, I am seeing more W's than I am seeing L's. So he's been a huge reason the A's have kind of dug themselves out of a weird hole that they ended up in. Like I said, they're still not good. Like, their pitching staff is just among the worst I've ever seen in my life. But Mason Miller, Lawrence Butler, and Brent Rooker kind of let them out of that tier of horrible, horrible teams. So that's why I have the A's at 27. Number 26 on this list is going to be the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. They're not called Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim anymore. They're just the Los Angeles Angels, but I don't know. It's always sounded better to me, so. Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. The note that I have for them on this right here is no Trout sucks, but Ben Joyce is so sick. And that is exactly right. Trout out for the year. He's done. He's not going to be seen for the rest of the year, possibly into next year. Torn meniscus. Guy just can't catch a break. I'm hoping he can come back healthy, because when he is healthy, he is a top 3 talent this game has ever seen. But unfortunately, I have to rank this Troutless team, and they ended up this low. 88 under run differential. Pitching has been a little better than we thought, but it's still not great. Lineup depth just isn't there. Their schedule, they play the Mariners a couple times. They play the Dodgers. They don't run into any, like, huge guys. They play the White Sox twice, but I don't know. I don't trust their depth enough, like, at all. And Ben Joyce can't really carry a pitching staff with him being a closer. So, I mean, I understand that I ranked the A's a little higher because of Mason Miller, but it wasn't really fully because of Mason Miller. It was because of Lawrence Butler and Brent Rooker as well. The Angels just don't have them, but they are, like, they do have a better win-loss and run. They actually don't have a better run differential than the A's, but they have a better win-loss, and I think that overall they probably have a slightly deeper team, but I mean, we're comparing mid and mid here. So Angels at 26, you can argue them to switch with the A's, but I'm gonna keep it like that because there's, like, it's the bottom of the list. Who really cares about the bottom of the list? At number 25, I have the Washington Nationals. And this is interesting to me because they have an absolutely awesome young core with CJ Abrams, James Wood. They traded Lane Thomas, but he would be in there. And then they have the veteran guys like Dom Smith, um, Jesse Winker, who I think is still on the team. I could be wrong. He got traded, so they do still have like a veteran guy like Patrick Corbin who can really help with that pitching staff. Not with his pitching, because Patrick Corbin might be the worst pitcher in the league. But he's been around the game for so long, he can provide the simple value of being a guy that the pitching staff can go to and just like talk to. I really like James Wood. James Wood is an absolute freak. They're definitely a work in progress. That's without a doubt. And they need some pitching around Mackenzie Gore. But I feel the Nationals have they're like three solid infielders, or not infielders, outfielders, short of being like a possible wild card team. And I know that's crazy, but because like I have them ranked this low, and I'm saying, oh, if they had three outfielders, they'd be in contention for a wild card spot. But I mean, I'm being serious because I mean their infield, while it definitely could be better. They have CJ Abrams, who has always been a highly touted prospect. And I mean, Juan Yepez, like, isn't the worst baseball player I've ever seen play. Like, I don't know if his current stats are like sustainable, but he can definitely provide some value, more value than I think a lot of people realize. So that's kind of my reasoning. It's mostly a depth thing, and don't get me wrong, the Nationals have like very, very, very little depth, but they are legitimately like three outfielders short of like a wild card spot. I was like begging them to call up James Wood for the longest time, like all year, and they finally did. I'm like, okay, this can work, but there's still so many holes. Like they need like a actual center fielder, is what I'm trying to say, pretty much. So, because I mean, James Wood is like lightning fast, but I just have him projected more in the corner outfield. So I don't know. It is what it is. The Nationals, they're a weird team. They're kind of always going to be a weird team. So they're going to be stuck at 25 for me. Number 24, I have, maybe a surprise to some, the Toronto Blue Jays. The little note that I have here is Nationals of the AL. Chad Green is good though. And that kind of sums it up. They have some good young hitters. Leo Jimenez has just absolutely beaten the shit out of the Orioles this series. Vladdy Jr. is on a huge, huge tear. And I will say that the pitching definitely has higher upside than a lot of the teams on this list. But for whatever reason, there just seems to be a mojo around that team right now. And their run differential is like kind of showing it. And I'm not sure how they're really gonna like get their shit together and move up in the divisional rankings. Because Gausman hasn't been Gausman this year. He just had a solid outing against the O's. But, I mean, there's not really much after that. So, yeah, the Blue Jays, Guerrero's awesome. Guerrero is sick, but Bichette has been hurt all year, and I don't know how long Jimenez is going to be able to sustain this. So, for those reasons, Toronto Blue Jays 24, Nationals North. Number 23, I have the Detroit Tigers. The note that I have here, tough schedule coming up. Skubal is gross though. They do have a really tough schedule coming up. Their run differential actually is pretty damn solid with only 18 under. So they are very, very, not clearly, but they are definitely underperforming their win-loss record. And that is largely due to their offense. Their offense, it just can't score for anything. Their pitching staff has actually been fairly solid for the most part, but I mean, as long as you got Javi Baez on your team, there's just not a lot of offensive production that can happen, man. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's at least kind of close to one of their biggest contracts in like the team's history. And if I look at his stats, he's hitting 179 with a 493 OPS with mediocre defense. That's a problem. Javi Baez was one of like the better shortstops in baseball going into like 2021. And ever since he got to Detroit, he has just been absolutely horrific. And as long as that trend continues, I don't see a world where the Tigers can really dig themselves out of this weird place they're in right now. Something I'll give them credit for is that they are very, very young. So they have time to kind of build up these younger guys. Like Riley Green is hurt right now, but he's gonna figure it out. He's actually probably been their best hitter. Spencer Torkelson has got to figure it out at some point here. So they have backup coming in, but I mean, for the rest of the year, they play the Yankees a couple times. They play the Mariners a couple times. They play the Red Sox. They play the Orioles twice. It's just not a recipe for success. So the Tigers are gonna stay down here in 23rd. Number 21 and number 22 have a weird connection, and they both have identical win-loss records. Or, sorry, they both have identical winning percentages, but I have the Chicago Cubs at number 22 and the Cincinnati Reds at 21. And that is simply because the Cincinnati Reds have the absolute privilege of playing the A's and the Cardinals 3 times for the rest of the year. The Reds have a very solid young core, and here I'll read to you the note for both teams. For the Cubs, I have tied with the Reds in division, but have worse run differential. I don't think that's true anymore, because this power ranking was made a little bit ago. I'm pretty sure the Reds have the... Oh, yeah. The Reds have the better run differential. Never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about. So that plays a factor, too. The Cubs have about 30 less run differential, and the Reds get to play the A's and the Cardinals a couple times. The Reds sort of own the Cardinals, and they have like this absolutely awesome young core with like Like Ellie De La Cruz, obviously. Like that's my note for the Reds. I have C Cubs note, also Ellie De La Cruz. I could talk about Ellie De La Cruz for 3 hours. Ellie De La Cruz is a beast. And he's just so good at everything. He's so good. He's so much better at baseball than like most people. And then you also have Noel V. Marte, who I believe should be activated off of the suspension list by now. They have Jonathan India, who won Rookie of the Year. So he has some sort of potential. Will Benson is still young. They have like TJ Friedel and Jake Fraley, who have just been so like a consistent backbone in that lineup for a couple years now. And Spencer Steer, who, I mean, Spencer Steer has been just terrific for the Reds and what they need. So the Reds are one of the like more fun teams in baseball, almost entirely because of Ellie De La Cruz. But I love watching them play, and that's kind of my reasoning for having them ranked above the Cubs. But I mean, you have the run differential thing too. But I absolutely love watching the Reds play. So I have the Reds at 21, the Cubs at 22. I am yapping. Holy shit, I'm a half hour in, and I'm only at number 20. Holy shit. Number 20, I have the Texas Rangers. And I have, as the note here for the Rangers, okay schedule, but next few days are going to be brutal. Also, AL West sucks. This is true. AL West does suck. Kind of a really disappointing year out of the Texas Rangers. They just won the World Series, and World Series hangover is real. Very, very real for the Texas Rangers. Schedule coming up, they play the Yankees and the Red Sox back to back. That's why I said about the whole next few days are going to be brutal, because they play the Yankees, the Red Sox, and the Twins in back-to-back-to-back series. But then they have the privilege of playing the White Sox and the A's in back-to-back series. So that kind of cleanses the palate. They obviously have big names. They had that period of time where they just wanted to go all in. So they bought for Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, gave them gross amounts of money. Obviously, you have Adolis Garcia, who's an electric factory, and the pitching is like so like solid name wise, but it just hasn't put it together, man. Like I can't really find a solid reason why, but their run differential is in the negatives, and I just don't feel like it should be. Like I feel like this team is so much better than the product they're putting on the field, and it's a interesting situation over there in Arlington. So Rangers are at 20. Number 19, I have a team that I mentioned when I was talking to the Reds. The St. Louis Cardinals. The St. Louis Cardinals have a really, really hard schedule coming up. Let's just talk about this month. They play the Royals tomorrow. That season starts. They then play the Reds. Then they play the Dodgers. Then the Brewers. Then the Twins. Then the Padres. Then the Yankees. Then the Brewers again. That stretch is just going to absolutely shoot them in the foot. That stretch, I don't think they're better than any of those teams, quite frankly. They're better than the Reds, but the Reds also own them. So it's not going to bode well for the Cardinals down the stretch. They don't have the depth. And the note I have here for the Cardinals is really hard schedule coming, so ridiculously old. And that That's about right. The Cardinals, I don't think like Mason Wynn is probably their youngest like position player. And after that, I mean, Paul Goldschmidt's like 36. Nolan Arenado ain't getting any younger. There's this looking at this team, I mean, and the pitching staff. I mean, Kyle Gibson, Sonny Gray, Andrew Kittredge, Miles Michaelis. I don't know where Lance Lynn went, but he pitches for this team. Brandon Crawford is playing baseball for the 2024 St. Louis Cardinals. And then they added Tommy Pham, and they still have Matt Carpenter. This team is so old and has such a hard schedule. I was debating putting them lower, but I mean their win loss record is above 500, so I felt kind of gross putting them any lower than 19. They'll stick right here at 19, but I mean they could easily find themselves much lower by next week or even the week after. Number 18, I have the San Francisco Giants. The note I have here, very easy August, lineup depth always scares me. That's kind of the story of the Giants ever since that weird Fuego 2021 year that happened, where they won just 106 games kind of out of nowhere. Um, they have the pleasure of playing the White Sox and the Marlins in August. They have the Cardinals at the end of September. Other than that, I'm not really sure why I said very easy. Oh, very easy August. Yeah, because they have the White Sox and the Marlins coming up, and the A's. Yeah, it's really easy August now that I'm looking at it. Lineup depth always scares me. Very true. Because they didn't do a ton at the trade deadline to make me think that they're like really trying to deepen up and make any sort of push. They did get Mark Canha. That's the very fine move, I guess. Marco Luciano is up. He's not like breaking headlines or anything. He's having a very okay year, 293 average, but I mean 756 OPS. It's nothing that I'm writing home about. They still have Lamont Wade Jr., who I feel like has been on that team since Willie Mays was still around. But they still have Michael Conforto, who is, I mean, I still have faith in what I seen him do with the Mets. That I'm just like never gonna give up on Michael Conforto. But they got rid of Joey Bart, who was their like, who was like kind of like their guy. I don't believe in the Giants to really make an effective push down the stretch. So I'll have them at 18. They're not the worst team in the league, but they're certainly not the best. So I'll just keep them right there at 18. Number 17, I have the Pittsburgh Pirates. And that may come as a shock, but the note that I have here for them is easy schedule, solid pitching, lineup depth scares me. Yeah. Lineup depth is definitely a huge issue with this team. They just, I think, kind of floundered a whole series they just got swept by the Padres, so there's that. But they have the Dodgers and the Padres coming up again. Then they have the Mariners, the Rangers, the Reds, the Cubs, and then in September they got the Nats, the Marlins, the Reds again, the Cardinals. It's not certainly not the easiest schedule in the world, but it's definitely doable to where they can kind of stay afloat here at 500. When we talk about roster depth, obviously O'Neal Cruz is sick. Brian Hayes gotta start figuring it out. I'm pretty sure his OPS starts with a 5, and that's just, we can't have that. I said the pitching is solid, and when I said that, I was literally only talking about Paul Skeens, so don't get another idea in your head. Um, yeah, this team is on the older side, but they have more potential than I think the other teams that are below them. And I just kind of believe in that schedule a little more, even though they do play the Yankees a couple times and the Dodgers and the Padres. But they have some beatable teams there too. So I like my pick at Pirates at 17. Number 16, I have the Tampa Bay Rays. Um, my note here says kind of sold the house, not expecting great things. Taj Chucks though. Um, schedule to me wasn't fantastic, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that they're in the AL East, and the AL East is just one of the tougher divisions to play in. They just wrapped up a losing series to the Cardinals. They play the Orioles this weekend. After that, they play the Astros a couple times. Play the D-backs. Get a 4-game against the A's, but then they play the Dodgers. So, yeah, they play the Orioles again. They play the Phillies. I'm just not crazy about the schedule. They play the Red Sox. Their lineup depth, like I said, they sold the house kind of, kind of big time. The only real guys that they kept are Brandon Lau and Yandy Diaz, and neither of them have been producing the way that you would think they have been. But they got rid of Randy Arozarena. They got rid of Isaac Paredes. They still have Josh Lowe and Jose Siri, which I think can produce for them in the down the stretch. Christopher Morel too. I didn't know they got Christopher Morel. Wait, no. Yeah, I did. I just forget what they gave up for him. I mean, I think it was Isaac Paredes or Isaac Paredes. So sorry. Um, yeah, and obviously, there's the whole nasty man situation, which I'm not even gonna say his name because it's an awful human being, and I'm glad that he's not coming back, or at least probably is not coming back. So yeah, Rays at 16. They have the opportunity to go both ways, I think, up and down these rankings. But for now, I think 16 is very comfortable. So just stick them right there at number 16. Number 15, I have the Seattle Mariners. And I wrote down one thing for the Mariners. Not even one thing, one word. And that word is mid. They're mid. I don't know what else you want me to say. They have Randy Arozarena. They have a mid schedule. They have a mid lineup. They have a mid pitching staff besides Castillo, Gilbert, and Kirby. Yeah, so maybe their pitching staff isn't that mid. I'm sorry, Luis Castillo, Logan Gilbert, and George Kirby, and Andres Munoz, and Austin Voth. Shout out Austin Voth, Orioles legend. Anywho's it's lineup depth is just mid. They only have one catcher, which I think is kind of funny. Yeah, I mean, there's just not a lot going on here in Seattle. Julio, I do want to kind of talk about Julio. Hurt right now. If he comes back, he's got to pick it up, like big time. He's by far the best talent on that team, and he just didn't produce this year before he got hurt. So that's if the Mariners want to kind of stay in this race for the division. When he comes back, he's got to start picking it up big time. So Mariners mid, number 15. Very appropriate position for a mid team, right in the middle of the pack. Number 14. Interesting now. I have the New York Mets. The New York Mets are playing awesome baseball right now. Awesome, awesome baseball right now. They had a weird series in LA, but they are playing awesome, awesome baseball right now. The note that I have here written for them is easy August, rough September, playing good baseball though. That about sums it up. They are messing up the Rockies right now, but when we go into September, they are playing the Phillies a lot. They are playing the Phillies a lot. There's a 3-game and a 4-game. They play the Brewers and they play the Red Sox. That's not easy, man. That's not easy. When we talk about a team that they have just recently jumped in their division, we'll kind of talk about the Mets more. So right now I'm just going to jump to number 13, which is the Houston Astros. We are officially done with the AL West, and we haven't broken the top 10. That's how mid the AL West is. The AL West is incredibly mid. The note that I have written for the Astros is tied with Mariners in division. That's not true anymore. They're actually a half game up. But I have faith in the pitch. I wanted to write pitching, but I ran out of space. In terms of schedule, we're looking here at a 3-game against the Red Sox, a 3-game against the White Sox. They play the Red Sox twice, and then they play the Orioles, and they play the Phillies, and they play the Royals. Yeah, this is rough. But the Astros, I mean, they have a very, very adequate team. Their bullpen is a very strong point with Presley, Abreu, and Hader. Their lineup, I mean, you have obviously Jordan, you have obviously Altuve, you have Bregman. Pena's got to start hitting at some point, right? Like, he's sick defensively, but he could be hitting for some better power right now. Chas McCormick is kind of a weirdly reliable guy for them. In terms of like just being able to fill spots. He hasn't hit shit this year, but that's okay. Depth is an issue, but I think the starting talent is enough to make up for it, and their run differential is a decent chunk better than the teams below them, except the Mets. Which, again, we'll talk about it. And that is why I have the Astros at number 13. Number 12, we have the Atlanta Braves. This could get spicy, ladies and gentlemen. This could get very... They have to play the Phillies a lot for the rest of the year. They play the Dodgers, they play the Mets, and they play the Royals. That's not exactly a recipe for success for them. The Mets, I have here for their note, the Braves note, that is. Mets creeping 20 less runs than the Nats, sail for Cy Young. When I said Mets creeping, they were, I think, a game and a half back. They have now jumped the Braves. The Mets are now in second place in the NL East. They're only a game ahead of the Braves, or not a game, a half a game ahead of the Braves. But the Mets, I think, have the potential to beat more of the teams on their schedule than the Braves do. I can't really see the Braves beating the Phillies as much as I can see the Mets beating the Phillies. And that's what's going to matter. No matter what, the Phillies are going to be in the middle of the top of the division, no matter what. But I think when it comes to the race for second, the Mets have a much better chance of getting to that Phillies rotation than the Braves do. especially with no Acuna. That has kind of killed them this year. Having the MVP production from Acuna last year, and then having him be mid for like 40 games, 50 games, however long it was, and then tearing his ACL again. That's just absolutely pummels your hopes and dreams as a fan, and it definitely has not helped their case in the division. So it's going to be a tight race for second in the NL East, but for now, I have the Braves over the Mets, but I probably don't stand by that. I'm probably going to end up having the Mets and the Braves switch places. So what I'm going to do is have the Braves move down to 14 on this list, and the Mets move up to 12th on this list. So 12 through 14 is now Mets, Astros, Braves. Just so we're clear. I should have probably did it in that order, but I kind of talked myself through it into switching it right now. So I want to make it very clear. 12 through 14 is now Mets, Astros, Braves. There we go. Number 11, we have the Kansas City Royals. My little note here says way overachieving, but it's probably sustainable. And you know what? That is for one reason and one reason only. And that is Bobby Witt Jr. Bobby Witt Jr. has a 1,000 OPS even this year and leading the league in WAR. That is absolutely insane production. He has 84 RBIs this year out of the leadoff spot. And in his last 30 games, which is pretty much all of the games since the All-Star break at this point, maybe a little less, he is hitting 455. That is a terrifying number to look at with an 810 slug. Like, who is this guy? Now, I will say, if there's one thing Bobby Witt doesn't do, it is walk. He has a 349 average on the year and a 394 on base percentage. That is a lower number than I would like to see for that high of an average, but I mean, he's still getting on almost 40% of the time. So, I don't know. He's just such a huge run producer, and he's like, if he's not the fastest man in baseball, he's as damn close as it gets, and he's probably going to end up 30-30 this year again. Yeah, Bobby Witt Jr. is the reason the Royals are at 11. Now, that's not all true. The pitching staff has held it down. The depth this year has been really, really underrated for them. But, I mean, Bobby Witt, man, he has put the team on his back, and he has, like, the strongest fucking back of all time. So, Royals coming in at 11. They're probably going to shoot up this ranking again, because I don't think they really have, like, the hardest schedule. If I look at this, they play the Phillies, but they also play the Angels. They play the Astros, winnable games. They play the Nats, the Braves, the Pirates. Yeah, I mean, these are all winnable games for them. If Bobby Witt keeps going at this crazy MVP pace, they're gonna find themselves in a comfortable wild card spot. We have officially broke the top 10, and in the 10 spot, I have the San Diego Fathers. Now, the note that I have for the Padres is feels similar to 2022. Need Tatis back. Machado's hot. Um, the Padres are in second place. They just swept the Pirates. If we go ahead and look at their schedule, they have the pretty privilege of playing the Marlins and the Rockies in for the rest of August. They play the Twins, they play the Mets, they play the Cardinals, so that's a comfortable series. And they play the White Sox again in September and the Tigers. So it's a it's a very adequate schedule, I think. I think it's very easy to help secure a playoff spot with that schedule. And when you want to talk about depth, I mean, Luis Arias, Xander Bogaerts, Jake Cronenworth, Ha-Seong Kim, Manny Machado, Donovan Solano, and Tyler Wade. That is a very solid infielder list. That's not what I meant to say, but I said it anyway. Those are very solid infielders to have on your roster at all times, right? And then the outfielders, David Peralta has been very solid for them. Jurickson Profar is an MVP somehow. He's been crazy this year. Finally living up to that hype that he had back in like 2010. Jackson Merrill, dude, for like the longest time, every time I would open Instagram, I would just see Jackson Merrill hitting another home run. I swear to God, that was like every single time I opened Instagram, all I would see is Jackson Merrill hit another home run. It was crazy. It was a out of body experience for me. Now Jackson Merrill's main problem is that he doesn't walk. Very similar to Witt in that sense, but that's something he can learn. Plays incredible defense. I love Merrill so much. Similar to Tatis, which I said in my note, need Tatis back to add that extra depth to send Peralta to the bench, because that's just crazy value you're getting. But I mean, the pitching staff has held it down. Dylan Cease is obviously nasty. When did Carl Edwards Jr. become a San Diego Padre? Very interesting. Tanner Scott at the deadline, great pickup. Matt Waldron has emerged as a very solid starter for them. I have faith in the Padres. I actually have them going for a solid run in the playoffs this year. Like, low key. I think that they have a very solid chance to do something this year in the playoffs. So Padres cracking our top 10. Number 9, I have the Milwaukee Brewers. The note that I have here is rough schedule, but I believe in the pitching and the depth. Yeah, schedule, I saw them on a couple schedules that I didn't like. They play the Dodgers, they play the Guardians, they get to play the A's and the Giants back to back. But once you get into September, they play the D-backs, they play the Phillies, they play the Mets. They're definitely losing, losable games for sure in there. Pitching, they just seem to be kind of a pitching factory. Like they have Devin Williams in the bullpen. They have like there's some of their starters like Freddie Peralta. I don't know when Brandon Woodruff is supposed to come back, but when he comes back, that further solidifies that starting rotation. Frankie Montas, I always liked him on the A's. And when it comes to depth, Rhys Hoskins could be hitting better, but Willie Adames is always solid. Joey Ortiz, former Oriole, I thought he was great for us. A very good contact hitter, has been kind of going off. Jackson Chourio is starting to find his footing. And then you have Christian Yelich, who will come back off the IL at some point, and then MASH. So I was happy to see him make the All-Star game this year because prime Christian Yelich was like watching Barry Bonds. So um I believe in the Brewers to keep a chokehold on this division, and I have them at number 9 in my power rankings. Number 8, I have the Minnesota Twins. And the note that I have here is schedule is very doable. Offense gotta stay healthy. And when I say that, I am specifically talking about Carlos Correa and Royce Lewis. Royce Lewis is back now. I'm fairly sure Royce Lewis is back. Royce Lewis is, in my opinion, like a generational talent. Like, just watching him play, he has such an offensive upside. It's absolutely crazy. Oh, I should have said this. I'm kind of sad I didn't. That kind of ruined it. Um, Byron Buxton also really needs to stay healthy because again, we're talking like MVP talent who just refuses to stay on the field. He's like Mr. Glass. But him, I kind of gave up on him back in like 2022 because I mean, it's like rinse and repeat with him. He's having like a crazy pace, then he gets hurt and doesn't play the rest of the year. So I'm kind of done with Byron Buxton. Max Kepler is still on this team. You still have like Austin Martin, guys like that. And then the pitching, you have Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan, who are very, 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 very solid. And then Yohan Duran is like the nastiest reliever I've ever seen in my life, besides like Ben Joyce and Felix Bautista. So I like the Twins at number 8. Their schedule, I forgot to go through their schedule. Their schedule is very fine. They play the Cardinals, they play the Blue Jays, but they also play the Padres, and they also play the Royals, and they also play the Guardians, and they also play the Red Sox, and they also play the Orioles. So it can get a little rough, but it's definitely doable to at least stay where they are in the division. Like I don't think anybody, like I don't think the Royals can really get up. Actually, they might be able to, but the Twins have a much more proven talent than the Twins do, in my opinion. So I think they're kind of a lock for a playoff spot. And yeah, Twins at number 8. This feels right. Number 7. Let's talk about the Boston Red Sox. The Red Sox, let's look at our note. Simply barrels. Pitching is kind of mid, though. That about sums up what the Red Sox season has looked like. Simply barrels because their offense has just smacked the ball around. Rafi Devers is having a great year. Ceddanne Rafaela is a beast somehow. Like, he's had a great start, in my opinion, especially more recently. And I think he can come up big for them down the stretch. They got Danny Jansen, who's always kind of reliable. Jarren Duran is a beast. Yoshida, I think, has a higher upside than what is being displayed right now. In his last couple games, he's looked a lot better. So I'm hoping he kind of keeps that up. And then, like I said, the pitching is kind of whatever. Brian Bayo and Tanner Houck are kind of their guys. And I mean, in terms of bullpen, they got Kenley, but Kenley is also older than dirt. So we'll see how long that keeps going. He's having a nice year, but it's just, yeah. The Red Sox, and I think what really pushes me over the edge for them is like the schedule. I don't think is like anything. Yeah, all very, very winnable games. The only problem they'll really come across is the Orioles and the Diamondbacks in August, and then they play the White Sox. Then they play the Rays, the Blue Jays a lot. They do play the Orioles and the the Red Sox. Yeah, the Red Sox will play the Red Sox, sure, Leo. Um, the Orioles, the Yankees. So that can probably come back to bite them a little bit, but I think it's winnable games. The Red Sox are a very young, fun team to watch, so I think 7 is appropriate. They've been playing great, great baseball as of late. Number 6, a up and coming team, which is actually behind the team I have at number 10. I have the Arizona Diamondbacks, and that also has a lot to do with the whole schedule thing, because they're playing the Phillies as we speak, actually, but then they get to play the Rockies, then they get to play the Rays, then they get to play the Marlins. And then we have a little thing here with the Red Sox, the Mets, the Dodgers. Then they get to play the Giants, then they play the Rockies again. That schedule seems like very, very doable to me. And with the roster that they have, it's kind of hard to see them not making a very solid push. They traded for Josh Bell, which I think is great. Ketel Marte is a beast, and he always was. They have a Eugenio Suarez, who has been a reliable bat for them. And then Corbin Carroll, who was off to a rough start, is kind of starting to find his footing a little bit again, which is nice after a Rookie of the Year campaign. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. is consistent. Alec Thomas is kind of figuring it out a little bit, but not really. He's not really someone they're kind of relying on. And then Jock Peterson hits absolute nukes. So, yeah. Diamondbacks at 6 feels appropriate, just outside of the top 5, because I think top 5 should generally go to like more beefed up rosters, and the D-backs don't really have that. Oh, I forgot to read the note. How stupid can I be? So the note that I have here is hot as of late, got to keep momentum after tough August. Yeah, that's kind of what I said. They have a couple rough matchups in August, but after that, they can kind of cruise. So I'm hoping that they can keep this pace, and hopefully I can kind of look back after they make that another crazy Linsanity playoff run and say, hey, I had faith in the Diamondbacks. So Diamondbacks at 6. I like it, but I don't. Because, I mean, like I said, they're hot as of late. They just need to keep it moving. So Diamondbacks 6. That'll play. Cracking the top 5. We are going to have the Cleveland Guardians. And let's read my note before I forget again. Potentially rough schedule could reveal pitching problem, which is not what I'm used to saying about the Guardians. The Guardians have generally been a pitching factory for them. Like, just throughout history, they're kind of responsible for Trevor Bauer. They had Mike Clevenger in his prime. Corey Kluber, I mean, prime Klubot was just could not be fucked with. They had Andrew Miller. I mean, just an absolute pitching factory. Prime Cookie, that's a solid pitcher, and they still have Cookie, but he's old and kind of bad now, so that kind of blows chunks. But they still have some of the young guys like Tanner Bybee. Clase is, of course, like arguably the best closer in ball. Tristan McKenzie, I have faith that he can figure it out after being sent down. I'm hoping he's up relatively soon because he has potential to be a really, really nice arm for them down the stretch. Gavin Williams. Gavin Williams, I just saw pitch the other day. He's like a monster. He's like 6'6", like 250, and he throws gas. Like, he's a guy. But unfortunately, when it comes to going down the stretch, a lot of these guys just don't have the experience. And I think that's what I'm mostly worried about. And when we go look at the schedule, they play the Yankees, the Royals, the Brewers. They do get to play the White Sox, but they also have to play the Royals and the Dodgers before that. So it's kind of like when you have to eat your veggies before you get your Hershey Kiss. Have to play the Twins, which isn't necessarily the end of the world, but it's not going to be easy for them, especially for how this roster is built. Like, they're getting good performances out of really, really odd players. And obviously, Jose Ramirez is just on another planet. Like, dude, get out of Cleveland, please. Just to get his name out there. Like, Jose Ramirez is very possibly the most underrated player in baseball. He has done so much for this team, even throughout the years. Like his last 30 games, he's a 304 with a 557 slug. His last 15 games, he's 345 with an 800 slug. What kind of freak are you, Jose Ramirez? Wow, 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 wow. Okay. Jose Naylor. Sure. Josh Naylor is a complete and total psycho. Like, if you were to ask me to give you the definition of a crash out, I'd send you Josh Naylor highlights. Because he's like not right in the head. Like, if you sent this guy into like the 1930s or 40s, he would be put in an insane asylum. Like, he's the Max Scherzer of hitters. Like, he's like clinically insane. But I mean, that's the kind of energy that a team like the Guardians need, honestly, with like relatively boring roster for the most part. That kind of energy is always appreciated. So, Guardians at 5, it has the potential to go south, but I think like they have done it for long enough now to where I can kind of comfortably say that they belong in this upper echelon of teams. So, Guardians at 5, I'm comfortable with it. Number 4, this is gonna catch some heat. I have the New York Yankees, and I think honestly they could probably go lower. Now, you can call me a biased Orioles fan all you want. I understand. And I also understand that they traded for Jazz Chisholm, right? They have an okay schedule. They actually have a pretty nice schedule. Play the White Sox a couple times, the Rangers, the Tigers, the Rockies, the Nationals, but I think September, yeah. Royals, Red Sox, Mariners, Orioles, those aren't easy games. And my problem with the Yankees roster here, let me read my note. 0 depth, but Judge and Soto rake. Pitching is fine. Pitching has the potential to kind of become less than fine. Carlos Rodon is like so incredibly disappointing. Like, his last, he couldn't like hold any sort of runners on base if he tried. Like, it was bad. Marcus Stroman is really good. Clay Holmes has looked good this year. Nestor Cortez hasn't looked like his normal self. And then Garrett Cole is just kind of Garrett Cole. Although, when he came back from his injury, he didn't look great. Oh, wow. No. Garrett Cole has a 5.09 ERA. Okay, no, maybe the Yankees are in trouble. But I mean, the the offense. You have Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Stanton's gonna come back, Jazz Chisholm Jr., and that's all you really need. Like, I mean, those guys are RBI machines. The only problem is the other guys getting on base for said RBI machines. And I don't know if Ben Rice and Trent Grisham can really get on base enough for said RBI machines. But obviously, they're facing some teams that they're able to kind of beat up on. It's scary. September is scary, but I think that they still have like that core talent that has the potential to like honestly get better if Stanton like becomes who Stanton is. So like the Yankees deserve to be this high. They've been back and forth with the Orioles in the division all year. They're a great baseball team, but I think the three ahead of them kind of have more depth and easier schedules. So, Yankees at number 4, very controversial in a lot of people's minds, but I think it's where they belong. Number 3, we are in the top 3, ladies and gentlemen. Number 3, I have the Los Angeles Dodgers, and the note that I have written for them is best depth in the league, second best hitter in the league. The second best hitter in the league I am referring to is but Shohei Ohtani. Schedule, I mean, once you get up to these like kind of juggernaut super teams, there's no real such thing as a hard schedule, but they still have to play the Orioles and the D-backs. They have to get through the Padres, which isn't necessarily the hardest thing in the world. But then they have the privilege of playing the Angels and the Braves and the Marlins and the Rockies a lot. Like September is going to be like kind of a breeze for them. So obviously they're running away with the division. Now what I'm really focused on is them compared to the two teams at 1 and 2. And while, like I said, they do have like some amazing depth, especially after the trade deadline when it comes to pitching. Like getting Jack Flaherty back, or not back, getting Jack Flaherty is absolutely huge. Getting Clayton Kershaw back is also absolutely huge. And then Kopech, getting him in a winning environment can only really help. Brent Honeywell is like a freak. He throws like a screwball. And then when you talk about the lineup, I mean, Shohei Ohtani, Will Smith, Freddie Freeman, Jason Hayward, Teoscar Hernandez. You're getting Mookie Betts back at some point. Like, this team is just absolutely stacked. And I don't really see a world where they not only lose hold of the division, but like don't make some sort of noise in the playoffs. Now, Dodgers are kind of notorious for not making noise in the playoffs, but I mean, this team just kind of feels different in a way, but I'm sure Dodgers fans say that every year, so I don't know. I'm kind of talking myself out of a lot of these teams, but I think the Dodgers are just so well built and so well managed that they obviously deserve to be up this high at number 3, but I think the two teams in front of them just have an easier path and are just much more like brute built, if that makes sense. So, Dodgers at number 3. Number 2. I have the Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies get to play the Nationals and the Mets and the Marlins, rather, a lot down the stretch. And that was a heavy influence in this decision. Another heavy influence in this decision is the fact that they are in contention with the Dodgers for best depth in the league. I mean, looking at this depth chart right here, I mean, their infielders, Alec Bohm, Bryce Harper, Edmundo Sosa, Bryson Stott, Trey Turner. That's better depth than the Dodgers. 100%. Only thing is the pitching. Pitching is weaker, especially after getting rid of Dominguez and Soto. Christopher Sanchez has been a really welcome surprise. Absence of Ranger Suarez, it kind of got felt for a bit there. But Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola are still holding it down. Jose Alvarado in the bullpen is real nice. Matt Strom is having a pretty okay year. So there are a lot of bright spots in this Phillies team. And like I said, the schedule for them is just like very, very, very beatable. And this team got a taste of what the postseason is and what the postseason feels like. And I feel like they just don't want to give that up, which can be said for the team at number one, except on a much lower scale. But, I mean, the Phillies are kind of built for the postseason. If you point a gun to my head and ask me to pick a World Series winner, I'm probably picking the Phillies. But I'm keeping them at number two because the team at number one does have a very, very easy schedule coming up. And that team, the Baltimore Orioles. The Baltimore Orioles, for the rest of this month, get to play. I almost said have to play. We get to play the Tampa Bay Rays, the Washington Nationals, the Houston Astros, and the Colorado Rockies. Now, we sprinkle in the Red Sox, which we own the Red Sox. Sprinkle in the Dodgers, whatever. And then in September, get to play the White Sox. Sweep. Get to play the Rays. We get to play the Tigers, and we get to play the Giants. That is absolutely wind, dude. That we are blowing by those teams. Now, we play the Yankees, which is going to be a huge decider when it comes to the division. But I honestly think, like, with what I said in the for the Phillies. Oh, I forgot to read the Phillies note. Whatever, we're past that. The Orioles note. Very doable schedule, very good depth all around. We have some of the best offensive depth that there is, especially after the trade deadline. Because now we have Eloy Jimenez, who we got from the White Sox, and we have Jackson Holliday up here, and he is absolutely hurting baseballs. And when you want to talk about the pitching staff, we got Sir Anthony Dominguez and Gregory Soto from the Phillies, so that just beefs up our bullpen. Our starting pitching, we got Zach Eflin, we got Trevor Rogers, not to mention AL Cy Young favorite Corbin Burns, as well as Grayson Rodriguez, who is kind of an injury concern right now. But we're all praying and hoping for the best that that's not going to amount to anything. Yenny Arcano is still Yenny Arcano. I mean, this team is so well constructed, so well managed. And, oh yeah, also we have James McCann, who took a 95-mile-an-hour fastball to the nose and stayed in the game. So we have that intimidation factor too. This team, like I said when I was talking about the Phillies, this team got a taste of what the postseason is. And I think they're ready for more. I think this team is very well equipped for the postseason. I think this team has the potential to be more clutch in the postseason than they were last year, in the small sample size, of course. But I really think that the Orioles are the best. How do I even say that? The most well-managed team in baseball. And that's not just talking about like Brandon Hyde. That's talking about our hitting coach, our pitching coach. Our pitching coach does wonders. Our pitching coach does wonders to some of our pitchers. I'm hoping he figures out Soto because if you guys watched the Park or Yard podcast, you'll know that I compared Gregory Soto to Wild Thing. That's not inaccurate at all. He very seldom does Gregory Soto know where the ball is going when he throws it. But this team, it's just gonna be very hard for us to not come out on top in the division with how easy our schedule is. And I think they just have the fight and the hunger to win, and that's what kind of pushes them above the Yankees for me specifically. The Yankees and the Dodgers, quite frankly. The Phillies have that kind of same hunger. But I mean, we're just talking about two different leagues. So I think we're done here. That was a very, very long recording session. That was a very, very enjoyable recording session. I hope you guys enjoyed. I had a lot of fun making this. I have a lot of fun doing this, like this whole podcasting thing. I think it's a lot of fun just kind of being able to sit here and just kind of ramble about something I'm so passionate about. This was the first episode. We're not going to see a power rankings again until probably closer to like September, probably I'd say. Until then, it's just kind of news and finding some cool obscure stats for you guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed listening to this. If you want to support me in other ways, you can listen to the Parker Yard podcast, which is specifically about the Orioles. I just uploaded yesterday on Spotify and YouTube. And you can follow me on TikTok at the Parker Yard podcast. And yeah, I think that's all I got to say. I hope you guys have a nice rest of your day, and I will see you next week.